Greetings, greetings. This is Soul Inspired Feminine. I am back. I'm forward actually. I like to say the word forward. Um I wanted to dive back into MJ Michael, the Ascended Master, part 2. Um yeah. Again, we went to see Michael again, and it was a much livelier audience this time around, and it was packed again. It was packed, and this is, you know, the second weekend of the movie, and it was still packed, and people were there to see other movies, of course, but the Michael movie was still packed. We actually didn't get the seats we wanted, but we got pretty good seats. Um so I was able to look at the movie this time from a different lens, and I just wanted to support it again. I just felt like, yeah, why not? Why not go see it again while it's still in theaters? I still haven't seen the movie on IMAX, and I want to go to an IMAX theater before it leaves to get the full experience of the MJ movie. So I wanted to go into part 2 of what I was talking about as Michael being the ascended master he is now. Um, and I want to talk more about the spiritual symbolism of Michael Jackson's music. And Barry Gordy said it best. He said that there are stars, there are superstars, and then there's Michael Jackson. And some people will say they're artists, and then there are people whose energy seems to move through generations. Michael Jackson was more than a performer to many people. His presence created emotion before he even spoke. People cried around him, trembled around him, felt transformed around him. And whether you see him spiritually, symbolically, or any other way, there's no denying that something deeper moved through his art and his being. I don't think he truly understood it, you know? Like sometimes you can be that person, but don't truly understand your effect on people. And so in this video, I want to explore the spiritual symbolism inside his music, his performances and the energy he carried, and why I believe so many people experience him as more than a celebrity. I remember growing up and how Michael, he was ahead of his time in every sense of the word. He created his own universe, his own world, and he didn't allow the earthly limitations to create magic. If you look at when he was sleeping in a oxygen chamber, they tried to paint him as Wacko Jackson, right? If you look at his video, Leave Me Alone, he was literally in the tabloids every week. Every week they had him like on the front of tabloid magazines in the 80s. He was the source of all ridicule, of all ways that they could make him look and seem like he was crazy, like he was out of this world, and they couldn't understand it. But Michael was ahead of the times. He was ahead of the times. No one could understand his life. It was almost like he was not real, because he seemed untouchable in a lot of ways, but yet people loved him and wanted to be around him. The only other person I would say that had a mysterious way with them too was Prince. But Michael was painted as wacko, as crazy, even though he was one of the most gentle and loving people. And when he opened Neverland, that really sealed the deal and how they would portray him. So back to his music, though. Music as frequency. Sound is powerful. It's ancient. And ancient civilizations understood this long before modern science began studying frequency and vibration. Michael always talked about his connection to Africa and the music of Africa and the land. And of course, he is, he's a Black American right here. And he studied music. He studied James Brown. He studied so many others, Sammy Davis Jr. He studied so many other artists that, he looked at them as inspirations to his music and his dancing. He didn't, he always gave homage to the people that came before him. He never acted as if everything was through his own eye, but he also was influenced by Peter Pan, and he gave homage to the higher force, the higher, being, God. He gave honor. He said everything, his inspiration also came from, God, and gave him inspiration to create. So, music can shift emotion, memory, mood, even the body itself. And he studied music. He studied frequency and his own manifestations. Some voices seem to bypass logic, like Michael, completely go straight into the emotional, spiritual centers of people. MJ had one of those voices. There was a pain in his voice, innocence in it, longing in it, compassion in it. He didn't just sing songs, he transmitted feeling. He could just feel joy. You could just feel joy and sorrow in the same performance. And he had many songs that created that feeling. He really wanted to heal humanity through art. And when I look at his body of work, I notice something consistent again and again. He returned to the themes of healing humanity, healing the earth, healing the inner self, protecting children, confronting injustice, awakening compassion. Songs like Heal the World, Earth Song, Man in the Mirror weren't only entertainment, they were messages, especially Man in the Mirror. The idea that the real change begins within, that spiritual teaching. Transformation begins internally first, then it ripples outward into the collective. And I remember when that song came out and everyone was just singing that song across the world in every classroom and every home, everyone was singing Man in the Mirror. The impact of that song at that time and that video, he had all of like the earth events that was happening at that time in the video, and it was such an impactful song. It's actually one of the most important songs if you think about modern, life and our responsibility of healing humanity and looking within if you want to make a change. You got to start with the man in the mirror to change his or her ways. If you want to make the world a better place, look at yourself and make the change. Now, that's the hardest thing to do. We want to look outside of ourselves and point the finger and tell people what they need to do with their lives. But the hardest job is to work on self, is to master self, is to make changes within and continue to evolve and to improve oneself, whether it's our attitudes, whether it's the way we treat ourselves and others, the way we treat and love ourselves and our biases, our prejudices, our whatever. It's really an ever work in progress to make the change within. It's really continuous work. Yeah, so yeah, that transformation begins internally first, and then it ripples outward into the collective. Oh boy. Yeah, yeah. Michael was onto something. He was ahead of his time. He really studied. He really was a sensitive soul, and he wanted to really save and assist. Like I said, so many people don't even know about We Are the World, and he was trying to, help um food insecure, starving children in Africa. He was trying to assist with that. Like, we need to help these starving children, these children who need help. And it was just a beautiful thing. And I remember that compassion he held throughout the world. Like, forget the talent, what he used the talent for. He didn't just say, "Hey, I'm talented and I want everybody to see what I can do." He literally was using his gifts and talents for good. I mean, sometimes I feel like a person like that, like I said, he was a Pisces rising, so he had done many, many lifetimes here. And I know a lot of people may click off right now, but hey, it is what it is. Um, a Pisces rising, he was very sensitive about the earth and the world and his feelings. He was very connected. He had been here and done this several times, and he was a Pisces moon. So he was very connected, and he was sensitive and empathic, and just so many layers to Michael. And I'm just glad that he's being recognized again on this level. It's a beautiful thing. He also used his talent through transformation and rebirth. Transformation was central to Michael and his career, his artistic identity. Every era felt like a rebirth. His new image, a new sound, new energy, almost like he was constantly shedding old skins and becoming someone new. Spiritually, transformation is often connected to initiation, the death of one version of self so another can emerge. And that archetype shows up, repeatedly in his work. Every visual, whether it's through light, fire, metallic gold, his militaristic jackets, his celestial imagery, his symbolism often carried themes of power, transcendence, and evolution. He was constantly reinventing himself. He always wanted to shed an identity he had before. He was always futuristic in that way of, what can I do? I want to leave. I want to no longer be known as Michael Jackson. I want to be known as MJ. I don't want to be the one that everyone remembered me as, singing ABC 1 2 3. That's what he wrote in 1979, when he wanted to move forward, and he put his words on paper of what he wanted to do. He wrote down his affirmations. He said his affirmations. He would sit, I think in the movie he was sitting in the pool and he was just channeling. He was channeling because he wanted to channel his he wanted messages to be channeled to him through God, through the Most High, so that he could do, he said if he doesn't listen, he might get, the message might be given to Prince. So he definitely was always reinventing himself, whether it was in his look. And again, we do know that he had vitiligo. And also I'm hearing that he had he has something else. I can't remember. I will look it up and maybe add it in. But yeah, he has some autoimmune diseases. So he really had his own physical challenges. And if anyone knows anything about autoimmune disease, it comes from being under extreme stress. Being under extreme stress in his childhood, all his teenage years, um, it shows up in the body. The body keeps score. And his body was, he was under extreme stress as a child, being a child performer, and also having, challenges at home. No one looked at it as, oh, it's because stress. They just looked at, oh, he has vitiligo and he should, just go to the doctor and even out his skin tone, which made him lighter. So he lost his pigment over time. And then he had the burn from the Pepsi commercial. So there were so many things he was dealing with. So that change in pigmentation also changed the way he looked as well. Like over time, if you looked at him from his childhood when he had the afro, to when he got the curl, the jerry curl, to when he had to start wearing hair pieces, his skin color changed. He changed his clothes the way he, in the beginning they were wearing, bell bottoms and, more flowered child type clothing. In their teenage years, that kind of did. And then they started changing that look too when he was with the Jacksons and so forth. So he had his own signature look over time. And then he became more refined as he got older, with his clothing, his style, his style evolved over the years as well. And so there's so many ways, like just as they've done one Michael movie. I'm hearing that there's another part, that's a part 2 and going to be in production. Like we can go on and on about the impact of Michael, MJ. As I said, he's an ascended master. So he came here to leave a lasting legacy on the world. Even though he came here in human form, he is now an ascended master because he has lived an extraordinary life, and he also came here as a humanitarian, as a healer, and he had power. He had power in his presence, and that's what I want to talk about as well. One of the most fascinating things about Michael was his presence. Sometimes he could, simply stand still at a concert and thousands of people would scream or cry. Think about that for a moment. Like before movement, before singing, before performance, presence alone created reaction. Some people dismiss this as celebrity culture, but I think energy is real. Certain people carry a frequency that deeply affects others emotionally and spiritually. And whether people understood it or not, they felt something around him. He had a presence. Even when he lost his pigment, and I've seen certain videos of him, and his aura was literally light. His aura around his physical form was light. He literally was light on stage, and he stood out as almost like angelic looking on stage. And they tried to dim his light through so many allegations and different things, but I've literally seen it with my own 2 eyes. He was light on stage. And in terms of his concerts and things, I mean, just think about the people who literally fell out. Like they had to have ambulances at his concerts because he even said it was like 5,000 faints a night. Like, are you kidding me? That many people fainting at his concert. You paying for a ticket to see Michael and you don't even make it through the first part of his concert because you faint. And most recently, I've seen it with my own 2 eyes at the movie theaters. People are falling out at the Michael movies. They are fainting. Ambulances are literally at the movie theaters. And I saw 2 at the movie theater I attended myself. Like, unbelievable. This man is still affecting people in that way after he's no longer here on earth. Unbelievable. So he had a power in his presence. And he also had, the burden of being misunderstood. Throughout history, people who are highly visible, emotionally open, or spiritually unusual are often misunderstood. And I can attest to that. Like I've been misunderstood on so many levels, and I can understand that. I can feel that in my heart and my being, that he's often misunderstood. Society projects onto them love, fear, fascination, suspicion, worship, criticism. Michael Jackson became a mirror for the world's projections. And sometimes I think the more sensitive a person is, the harder the world can become around them, especially when they refuse to become emotionally hardened. He refused to be what they wanted him to be and become emotionally hardened, even though people were so mean to him. And when I say people, the powers that were very harsh to Michael. Who does that sound like? They crucified him, right? And Michael literally was symbolically crucified on the cross. Yes, he was. So we literally lived during a time where we saw a person who was crucified in front of everyone. Yeah. If you spiritually open up your spiritual eyes and get beyond the religious dogma, you can see yourself. Open up your spiritual eye, your mind's eye, your spiritual eye, and you can see it yourself. And many people that we know, and even in our own lives, we have been crucified in that respect. If we're going to use that as a example, I have been in the face of my enemies, in the face of people that I thought where I realized they were Judas. So yeah, we can go there. We can, and in terms of the comedic legacy, there's stories of that as well. So yeah. So in closing, now traditionally the term ascended master belongs to spiritual traditions and figures viewed as highly evolved beings. And what I'm sharing here is not doctrine, it's my perspective. It's a symbolic and spiritual interpretation of a man whose energy touched millions of people across the earth. Whether you see Michael Jackson as an ascended master, a spiritual archetype, or simply an extraordinary artist, his presence continues to move through humanity long after his physical departure. And maybe that kind of impact is its own form of ascension. So, let me know, what do you think? Was Michael Jackson simply a legendary performer, or was it something deeper moving through him? I personally say he's an ascended master, and that came to me very clearly, and I don't apologize for it. And some would even say he's Archangel Michael reincarnated. So there you are. But we do know that if you were able to live during this time, to witness Michael, you were blessed, you were fortunate. All right, and this is Soul Inspired. Thank you. And you can always check us out, like and subscribe, and I hope that you enjoyed this. All right, beloveds. Ankh Uja Seneb, healing and harmony. Much love. Mer. Do I enter?